Hey, it's Travis, and welcome to another episode of the Marketing Unboxed podcast. In this episode, Allie and I sat down with Nelson Gilliat. He is the author of Death of the SDR and talked about his book and about that concept that he is a very big proponent of. I mean, so much so that he wrote a book, obviously. But he thinks that the role of the SDR is antiquated and should really be replaced by more of a marketing function. If you're in recruitment marketing or recruitment, if you want to relate to this, you could just substitute the term SDR with sourcer and AE with recruiter and see if it rhymes, see if it makes sense, and see what you think. So sit back and enjoy. Cool. Well, today we have Nelson Gilliat with us, who actually is our second guest, whose last name is the combination of his parents' names. So I think that may be our criteria for screening guests. But yeah, Nelson, thanks for joining us. Excited to talk about buyer-centric revenue models and your book and predictable revenue model and why it should go the way the dodo bird. So thanks and welcome.
Yeah, good to be with Travis. Good to be with you, Allie. So yeah, thanks everyone. I think it's going to be a great chat today.
Awesome. So you have a book, Death of the SDR, and in that book you talk about a concept, a model, the buyer-centric revenue model, and it's kind of the antithesis of kind of the more common predictable revenue model, which I've read the books associated with that and know that model well as well. And I've always thought it's been broken. I think that's how you and I hopped on a call a couple of weeks ago to just kind of riff about how we both feel the same way. But for a little bit of context, because some of our listeners may be kind of new to marketing or new to kind of the rev ops model and that whole the revenue centric piece, tell us a little bit about the predictable revenue model, and then what was the moment where you thought, man, this is completely broken?
Yeah, totally. So the predictable revenue model is the official playbook for pretty much all B2B marketing companies, B2B companies for their marketing and sales. And essentially it's two components. The first one is prospecting / SDRs. And the second component is the sales assembly line or seller specialization, namely the AE CSM split, but also other subdivisions. In other words, buyer handoffs. So that's it. It's those two things. Now it has, it sort of came about in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then was popularized in 2011 by Aaron Ross. And the model hasn't changed really since the late 90s, early 2000s. Yet buyer preferences, technology, and how marketers can woo buyers and how buyers want to be wooed by marketing has completely changed, but the model has not. And that's really the whole crux of the problem, and why I think that marketers and sellers, we're in this straitjacket that we're forced to do things that we shouldn't do, and we're prevented from doing the things that we should do. In other words, we're doing bad marketing and sales, and fundamentally we're annoying buyers. It's anti-buyer. And so my whole thing could kind of probably be distilled to the buyer-centric revenue model. The alternative offer could just be like, if you want to make money and you want to do good marketing sales, don't annoy your buyers, is essentially kind of the theme. And so what I would say is, to the extent that companies run the predictable revenue model, because it's not like they adopt it fully straight and that's the only thing that they're doing, but to the extent that they run that model is the extent of the harm, and that buyers buy, marketers market, and sellers sell, and companies grow despite the model, not because of it. So to some extent, the buyer-centric revenue model, which is like good marketing, good sales, is kind of unofficially happening at these companies. Like there's a mixture at these companies. They're kind of like, competing with each other. And I'd like to see people completely discard the bad, and just do the good, just do good marketing and sales.
So I agree with you. There's a lot of, I think anybody who has been in any sort of leadership role or ownership role has received the horrible end of the SDRs, right? Mm-hmm. And then, and the part where it's like, I want to make sure you're okay. You haven't responded to me. You haven't died, and all this kind of stuff. And it's all very to me, it's all seemed very selfish. Like it seemed like selfish marketing, as opposed to my business partner and I talk a lot about how do you create marketing that's unselfish, as opposed to I'm the center of this whole conversation. So it sounds to me like that's kind of what you're saying, but just logically, like none of our relationships in our personal life work if we annoy the other person. They just don't. Why is it so hard to bring into the sales perspective?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we think about the dating world. We often use that analogy about like, you know, are you successful if you go out and try to annoy people and pester them? And so it's a really bad way of, it's a lose-lose. It's like not benefiting marketing to go out and annoy their buyers and pester their buyers. And we'll talk about what some of that harm is. And so we've kind of talked like very high level about what the predictive revenue model is and sort of why it's bad, but like to talk more specifics also, maybe to give some context of like, well, what are the problems that it's causing? And so for a lot of people who are listening to this today, a lot of maybe marketers, and you're frustrated with the lead gen model, you're frustrated with the MQL hamster wheel, you're frustrated having to, and essentially what an MQL is you're generating contact info of uninterested buyers. And you're doing that through gated content, list purchases, or events, and you're trying to just capture people's contact information. The whole reason why, and that's why marketing is like the whole key performance indicator for marketing of why it's the MQL, you know, and it's because they need to constantly generate a high volume of that stuff, a high volume of contact information, so they can give that to SDRs, and the SDRs can burn through that by doing the worst kind of marketing, which is telemarketing, email spam, and LinkedIn spam, aka prospecting. That's what prospecting is. And we'll talk more about that and why prospecting is bad marketing and why that is the function of the SDR role. That is what SDRs are doing. And that it's a marketing thing, not a sales thing. But it's, you know, this type of, this prospecting, that what the SDRs do, that fundamentally is bad marketing. It's crowding out good marketing. And we'll talk about that more as well. And what I think the definition of good marketing is, I'm happy to sort of like, so how do you know if your marketing is efficient and effective? I'm happy to also talk about that as well. But I'll kick it back over to you guys to see where you want to take things.
Yeah. And I think just hearing you talk about it just brings back so many bad memories for me from my sales days and also my recruiting days, because both are structured that way of it's a numbers game. And if we just spam enough people, sure, something's going to stick, right? But the problem is you have to spam enough people. And in doing that, you just destroy your trust, your brand. I mean, I think if marketers at big companies like Microsoft and Google knew the amount of brand damage recruiters are doing on a daily basis, they would be appalled. And I think the same can be said from a sales perspective as well. It's just, and I saw when I was reading your book and I saw the kind of the math of 3,000 outbound emails, calls, to get a 30% hit rate or 30, callbacks or 30 responses, 10% of those actually turn into a call. That's exactly what recruiting was. And when I was in sales, that's exactly what it was. And it's just an enormous waste of time and resources when it could be a lot better.
That's a really good point. I mean, you're doing all this bad activity, telemarketing, email spam, LinkedIn spam, which yields very little results. Not to mention, there's a massive damage that it does, which is it turns off a lot of buyers. So in your CRM, you might see 100 calls, one person took a meeting and that person never bought, but you don't see all the people that it annoyed and like damaged your brand and stuff like that. And so you're doing way more harm than good. And so prospecting and SDRs, they are net negative. The way I see it, they are not like icing on the cake. Like, okay, let's have good marketing and proper demand gen, and then we'll have a little bit of prospecting as icing on the cake. No, prospecting and SDRs, they're poison in the champagne glass. And it's demand gen is actively competing for resources, for buyers' attention with SDRs. And so that's coming to a forefront. A lot of demand gen marketers are trying to break free from the MQL hamster wheel, gated content, doing things they know don't work, like display ads and trade shows and this and that. But they can't, and try to, get accountable to real marketing metrics about what good marketing is. But they can't, because they've got to feed the SDRs. They need to, and so unless you get rid of SDRs, unless you sunset them, unless you challenge predictable revenue, you'll never break free of it. You're going to constantly be in this straitjacket. And by the way, it is the fundamental reason why there's a misalignment with sales, because marketing is producing junk, MQLs, and then sales gets caught holding the bag. And so marketing is pushing a lot of junk through, and sales, it's just wasting sales time. These people aren't buying. They're not buying fast. They've got no brand preference. They've got no brand affinity. There's other competitors at the table, and they're not for far along in their journey. So it takes them ages, they're not in buy mode. And so that's the whole misalignment. Sales just wants layup. Sales just wants people who, come into the website to buy, and they help them buy, evaluate, purchase, be successful, implement, whatever, expand that, And so so to kind of maybe talk about like briefly before we move on, like what is good marketing? Like, well, how do you evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of good marketing? So if you're not going to say it's an MQL, because I don't think an MQL is a lead. Like an MQL is just contact info of uninterested buyers. A lead is someone that comes to the website, requests to speak to sales, and marketing has automatically qualified them. That's a lead. Everything else is just contact info. And so good marketing, like how you measure good marketing, what marketing should be accountable for and on the hook for, is revenue and pipeline quality and efficiency. In pipeline quality efficiency, you're looking at number of sales opportunities, cost per opportunities, conversion rate, sales cycle, average selling price, cost per acquisition payback period. That is how you evaluate good marketing. That is evaluating the quality and efficiency of marketing's leads, all the way to revenue. And that's what marketing sales, that's how you align them both. They're kind of like looking at the same metrics here. And today, that's not the case. Marketing is accountable to junk, not a lead. It's to the MQL. And that's why marketing is producing a lot of junk, regardless of the cost, regardless of the efficiency, regardless of the quality. And that's why sales is suffering, why sellers are missing their revenue goals, why there's high turnover, low tenure. I mean, by the way, ask any CMO and ask any sales leader how their tenure is doing. It's not pretty.
So I think there's probably two things here. One is the recognizing it's a problem, but having literally no authority to fix it in your organization. And so I know Travis and I are both very active in the marketing Twitter community. And there's just kind of like, it's like these conversations that I've done. If CEOs who are looking to do really great marketing would just go read some of these threads, it's like the conversations among marketers is just so blatantly obvious that this is broken. But I think the second thing is like a person doesn't come to this realization on their own. So what was the moment that you really decided, I am disgusted with this and we need to move into a different direction? Was there like an experience or a summary of things?
Yeah. So I used to work at a big company that ran the predictive revenue model, and I was an SDR, and then I was an AE, and I saw all the problems, I saw the inefficiency and the ineffectiveness, and I was trying to fix it, but I was like, oh my, and then I realized actually it's the model itself. And what ended up really clicking for me is I went to a very, very small startup, like 5 people, and we didn't have the resources to waste in the predictable revenue model. We had to have a proper marketing engine. And then I saw what good marketing looks like. And I think one of the reasons why prospecting still sort of lingers is not only the predictive revenue model, which I think gives it a semblance of necessity and respectability, but people don't know what good or proper marketing looks like. So I'll talk about that in just a moment, but just to kind of again, prospecting is code word for the worst kind of marketing. And it is massively resource intensive, time, capital, labor intensive. You think about all the stuff that gets wasted into the SDR org, the people, the process, the tools, the whatnot, lead routing. It's just ridiculous, which is one reason why people outsource it, which doesn't make it better. It just maybe sometimes makes it slightly less awful because you're kind of outsourcing your dirty garbage.
Yeah. And I have one thought, kind of a comment. October was kind of conference month. I was in like 5 conferences. I can't remember where I saw Sam Jacobs from Revenue Collective Pavilion talk. Might have been Inbound. Somebody I think had asked him, if you're starting a company, where should you focus first? Sales, building a sales team, or building a marketing team? And he said, building a marketing team first. And I thought that was interesting because when I think of something like Revenue Collective Pavilion, I think of a bunch of sales leaders, right? I know there's a lot of marketing leaders, but I thought it was interesting that he said, start with marketing and then bring on sales. So it really kind of fits right with the model that you're talking about.
Totally. I mean, marketing precedes sales chronologically. First, you start with product, and then you start with marketing, and then you have sales, and then, customer service, whatever, and then the other back office or mid office, and then back office functions in a company. So marketing is way more important and responsible for the buyer's journey than it ever has been. It used to be back in the day when marketing lacked the ability to connect with buyers and move buyers. Marketing didn't have as much of a big role in the buyer's journey and the influence in the decision to purchase. Now it's like buyers self-educate themselves thanks to marketing's efforts and are pretty much 80% of the way before they speak to sales. And sometimes marketing is responsible for the entire buyer's journey when there is buyer self-service to the extent desired and possible. And so it's marketing who's enabling that. Just like when in B2C marketing, there's no sales. It's marketing is doing the whole buyer's journey. Similarly in B2B, that's a lot of where the direction is going, is marketing is pretty much responsible for most of the buyer's journey. So marketing is playing a much bigger role, much more important role, therefore has a much bigger seat at the table, is much more responsible for revenue. But yeah, I mean, good sales sits on good marketing. And so sellers want good leads. That's it. That's the whole misalignment thing. It's like, you're giving me bad leads. I don't like you, marketing. I don't trust you. So sales is way more efficient, way more effective when you give them leads of buyers that have brand preference and affinity, that are in buy mode, understand your product. They're pretty much further on their journey. And it's like a layup for sales. I mean, sales still has to do sales and do a lot of stuff, but like, they're not like chasing people who don't want to buy, and they're not like tire kickers or whatnot, or, buyers who are talking to 4 other people and shopping you out. So yeah, so marketing is, way more important in an early growth stage company. You need to get your marketing down, and then you hire sales, and be careful not to do that the other way around. Like, don't have too many sellers, because then you have too many mouths to feed and you haven't have a proper marketing work to feed it. And then you're like, oh, well, we got all these unproductive sellers, so maybe we'll have them go out and hunt. And that's how kind of where prospecting sort of came about, was back in the day, marketing lacked the ability to connect with buyers. They threw sales onto the bus, had sales go out and hunt for buyers like primitive cavemen and like annoy them. And, and sales was doing marketing. Sales was doing bad manual marketing to try to generate pipeline. So you got to fix marketing, have a good marketing engine, and then you hire sales, and don't hire too many sellers. Don't have too much headcount, and so if you have a proper marketing engine, you're generating quality leads, then you don't need as many sellers. Like you just like, your pipeline coverage and whatever, you'll realize how many sellers you need and like what's the productive capacity and whatnot. But it's like, the worst thing you want is to hire a whole bunch of sellers and then hire one marketer to say, all right, now it's your turn to feed them. And it's like, whoa, you got it totally backwards.
Yeah, I've seen that far too many times. I also see the issue, like experientially, we had a part-time intern that was just doing some outreach for us. And we actually had a product that we're a HubSpot agency. And so we wanted to test some sequences. And the interesting thing was we learned this so much that this is my story for every single client that tries to do this. We thought, well, we have some video production in-house. We know that this time of year, a lot of higher ed universities, we do not do this anymore, but higher ed universities want to maybe create a video to attract incoming students. And so we created this campaign to reach out to universities, and basically found that since we had zero marketing, they didn't know who we were. They had nothing to qualify that we were actually worth our salt. We had one sample of video, but it wasn't like, here's the 5 types of videos that you need, and here's all this stuff. Like, we just literally handicapped that intern's efforts to even get a response, period. And I see so many organizations that try to do that. They're like, well, we'll just fill in the marketing once we know what the market wants. SDRs are not customer validation experts. They are SDRs. That's it.
Yeah, I saw something from like Kyle Porter, the head of Sales Loft. It's a prospecting tech company. And people are trying to twist themselves into pretzels to try to redefine the SDR role and to say, well, they're not just annoying, buyers and trying to set appointments for sales, through telemarketing and email spam and LinkedIn spam. They are, doing prospective customer intelligence, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, no. Don't get it twisted. And so I think, we've kind of beaten the predictive revenue model and prospecting to death. We're like, that's bad marketing. Don't do it now. But to kind of paint the picture of what is good marketing. So all marketing is outbound, that throw out that whole inbound, outbound nonsense. All marketing is outbound to woo buyers in the door, to request their hands to speak to sales. And that is a lead. When a lead comes to the website and they request a demo, that's a lead. And then marketing automatically qualifies them on the website. And then if they're qualified, that buyer can request, or book a demo right from a seller's calendar. And that's it. They just get a demo right there. Now, in terms of the tactics, so if marketing isn't doing telemarketing, email spam, LinkedIn spam, like, well, what do you do? And proper marketing these days is essentially really good content, whether it's written, audio, or visual, or mixture, educational, entertaining content distributed effectively, whether that's on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatnot, YouTube. In fact, Ali, I recognize you from a YouTube video where you were doing like a HubSpot tutorial before I ever even met you. And so that's a testament because you help folks with HubSpot, and that's great. And so in any case, now you can do Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, YouTube ads. You can do a podcast, guest podcasts, and invite your buyers on. And again, that's content, and you chop that up and then you distribute that in the same way we just talked about. You do events, roundtables, summits, panels. You invite your buyers, you invite influencers, people who already have an audience and a community as you're building your audience in your community. And again, an audience is basically building out in public, and then a community is like you're making it private, and you invite those people to kind of come and join your community, engage with one another. You're building thought leadership, you're building your expertise, you're building your point of view because you're engaging with your customers and you're learning, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully you're remarketing to previous buyers and users that change jobs. You're hitting up your previous customers, you're doing referral marketing, you're doing buyer self-service to the extent possible and desired. You're enabling buyers that do want to speak to sales to have a seamless, frictionless ability to connect with them. So by automating qualification, demo scheduling around the website, in-app marketing or promotion, or in-product marketing promotion to help with expansion and retention, reviews, case studies. These are all the things that and more that marketing can do. And so that is good marketing. And not a lot of people realize what that is. And you just need to educate them for the same reason that companies who want to woo buyers need to educate their buyers as to what their software does for them. There's essentially, I have 4 steps for you to compare, test, and gradually transition. So it's not like you're just throwing it out overnight. You're slowly moving towards it and you're proving it at your own company.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think I'm really anxious to hear those 4 steps. And you mentioned something that is really key, and that is there's a long-term element to this. It's not a short-term fix, not a short-term thing that you can do, but you really have to look at it from the long term. And if you expect your company to be around for a long time, I think you need to look at your marketing and sales approach from a long-term perspective.
Yeah, and I would say the smaller of a company that you are, the worse the predictable revenue model is. So if you're a founder or you're the first marketer at a small company, the best thing that you can do is proper marketing. The best thing that you can do is like LinkedIn organic, guest podcast, get on the people who already have a built-in audience. It is having a podcast of your own and inviting the people to come on. It's being a speaker at events and whatnot. Yeah, so it's like doing those type of things is I think the best way to start. You're speaking to your buyers. You're getting a lot of product feedback, especially at the early stage. You kind of want to be constantly speaking to your audience and hearing what they're talking about, what they're saying, and like getting feedback on what you're putting down, especially if it's your brand narrative that you're putting out there. You're saying, hey, here's the state of this things and this sort of, and here's what I'm doing about it. And people ask you questions and people push back and you're learning all sorts of stuff. So like I'm putting out my new buyer-centric revenue model and challenging the old model out on LinkedIn, and I'm getting a lot of feedback and comments, and I'm getting better at it and like learning more and like improving my formulations of it. So yeah, do that type of stuff. And so, it's, better in the short term and way better in the long term. It has compounding yield. You're not turning off your buyers. And then once you have enough money from the organic, then you can amplify that message, amplify that content on paid. And so then you kind of layer on Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, whatnot, etc. And so don't make the mistake in your young company when you have very limited resources to try and waste all those resources on predictable revenue model. It's really the VC-backed companies who get millions of dollars to waste on the predictable revenue model and then hire all the SDRs and do that stuff, or PE companies. And I've seen it time and time and again. And by the way, that company that I worked for that had the predictable revenue model, they were sold at a loss, $300 million loss. from the buying price, then 10 years later to their selling price. During that time, they also lost tons of money. That, the buying sunk just so much money. And then whereas the startup that I was working at, to some extent, had the buyer-centric revenue model, no SDRs, no prospecting, proper marketing, and then no sales assembly line. And the company 4x revenue during COVID, and all the business metrics were improved: conversion rate, sales cycle, average selling price, whatnot. Company raised money, and this was with 6 people. We were 6 people. So if you're a founder, you can go a lot further, faster, a lot easier, and still keep the ownership of your company if you do proper marketing. Now, in terms of the 4 steps to compare, test, and transition away from bad marketing towards good marketing at your own company, improve this. The first step is to gather CRM data. So you've got the theory from me and whatnot of what you should do. Go get the proof and the evidence. So go into your CRM and analyze the leads generated from prospecting or from SDRs against the leads generated from proper marketing / demand gen. In other words, demo requests on the website. And then look at the metrics that actually matter. Look at revenue and look at quality, pipeline, and efficiency. So you're looking at conversion rates, sales cycle, number of opportunities, cost per opportunity, average selling price, CAC payback. And then in addition, estimate your resource allocation between prospecting versus proper marketing, demand gen. If you're basically like 75-25 in favor of prospecting and SDRs, but all your good stuff is coming from demand gen, good proper marketing, that should tell you something, and so can factor that in. Get qualitative data as well in addition to quantitative data. So ask your customers, your buyers, hey, how do you like to be marketed to, and how do you not like to be marketed to? How do you like telemarketing, email spam, and link spam? Oh, you hate it? Ask them how they heard about the last product that they bought. What made them actually buy it? How do they actually hear about your product, and what made them actually buy it? Chances are word of mouth, social, podcasts, whatnot, community, not your SDR telemarketing call. And so, in terms of what attribution or knowing where leads come from, very simple. On your website, ask your buyers when they request to speak to a demo, how did you hear about us? In a required field, not a pick list, but an open text field, which you can map to your CRM. Get this truth about how your buyers actually heard about you straight from the horse's mouth. You can also ask salespeople to ask it as well, get double confirmation. And then you'll just see that stuff. You'll see the word of mouth on social media as well, and you'll hear it all the time qualitatively. But anyway, that's the first step. Gather the CRM data. Take that data, and for step 2, propose a pilot, propose a test, propose an experiment to the board, to the CEO, to the CMO or CRO, CSO, if that's not you. Gather your allies, gather marketing, ops, sales, and finance. Because again, remember, sales wants good leads. They don't want the SDR junk leads. And a lot of salespeople were formerly SDRs. They know how awful and terrible it was, because unfortunately the SDR role is required a stepping stone for sales, even though it has nothing to do with sales. But also include finance. Finance cares about the numbers, and they've got the purse strings. So recruit them as allies. The one blocker that you will need to worry about is the SDR leaders, who hopefully are seeing the writing on the wall and also want more productive and fulfilling careers, because the SDRs will be rooting for you because they cannot wait to transition to productive and fulfilling careers, which is whole part of the strategy is to help them do that. It's to help them move into marketing, sales, rev ops, whatnot. So you're not wasting their talent. And they can do more creative things. And we'll see how that can be done in step 3 and step 4 as part of the pilot and experiment.
I think proposing a pilot sounds, any new initiative in a company requires some sort of proof point, and that's usually the way to establish that. The thing I've seen as a roadblock, however, is the pilot needs to have the appropriate length of time in order to prove itself. So is there a time frame that you have in mind for that?
Exactly. Yeah, great. I was going to cover that. So the duration should be at least a few sales cycles so that you can track the metrics that matter all the way, to revenue. So you're looking at your number of opportunities, cost per opportunity, conversion rate, sales cycle, average selling price, CAC payback, and you're giving it time to breathe as well. So.
Right. I think in situations where you have a very clear product that is short, but if you have, let's say you're, enterprise sales with a very complex software application, that could be, from what you're saying, that could be up to 2 years.
Actually, I would push back on that. I think one of the reasons why those sales cycles are very long, even in complex products, is because of bad marketing and sales. And I think that it's put up a lot of friction. It makes it very difficult for buyers to actually purchase your product. And so you can sell a very expensive product and you can sell a quite technical and complex product, but your sales cycle can be dramatically lower than 2 years. And so if you run this way, your sales cycle will decrease a lot for everybody. And obviously companies should try to make their product a little bit easier. I mean, there's some faults on product too. So try to simplify your product a little bit, but hey, marketing's got to deal with the product it gets. So, but yeah. So whatever your sales cycle is, whatever, let it breathe. And as you kind of do this stuff, you'll see your sales cycle decrease, which will be great, especially if you're suffering high sales cycles. Now, so step 3, the first of 2 trials or experiments to run is to automate demo qualification and scheduling, effectively the inbound SDR role. So these are buyers that are coming to your website, knocking on the door to speak to sales. Hey, I want to speak to sales. And you're giving them, this whole ring around the rosy with the SDR, qualifying them and whatever, the SDR mainly reaching out when they do. And basically, if you do it manually, 70% of those demo requests never hold. So 70% of those people never, ever make it to sales. And it takes them way longer to get to sales. And because of that, they tend to request multiple demos from multiple companies. There's more competitors at the table. So you're more likely to lose the deal. And so don't do that. Like, this is the low hanging, high intent fruit. And so you can easily 2x your high intent pipeline by making sure that these demos actually hold by automating this on your website. And so, yeah, ask your qualification questions on the website, the few necessary ones that you need to do, and then directly route them, let them book a time from a seller's calendar and give them right to a seller. As you then automate demo qualification scheduling, give your SDRs quota relief to the extent that they're doing inbound, repurpose them to do productive and fulfilling marketing tasks, which they'll be thrilled. You give them proper demand gen tasks, product marketing tasks, social media content tasks. They'll love that. And again, the duration is a couple of sales cycles so that you can track the metrics that actually matter for marketing to evaluate marketing's efficacy, run that for a few sales cycles. So that's the first of the 2 trials and experiments that I would recommend. This is a huge win for marketers. And already there's a lot of progress of people who are already kind of seeing this and just like, yeah, this is really silly to have the whole SDRs just do it. So this is, I think, the easier win, the first domino to fall in repurposing SDRs, or rather sunsetting SDRs into other roles.
Do the SDRs feel like their job is in jeopardy at any point?
Yes, they should, but they should realize that it's not that their employment is at jeopardy. It's that their role as an SDR is in jeopardy, but that they hopefully will have a better, more fulfilling role at the company in marketing and in sales and revenue operations or something else, customer service, whatnot. And so, yeah, just recognize that, like, look, if you're in the horse and buggy industry in 1920s, that like the solution to your role is not better training, more coaching, more tools. It is you're being replaced by the car. And so see that right on the wall and try to move where the puck is going, and which is anyways what they're trying to do. I mean, no one's staying in the SDR role for life. They're just like, kind of going through this awful, like almost like corporate hazing ritual where they kind of get put through the meat grinder, like in the military where they put I was wondering when the military metaphor would come about, where they get thrown to the wolves and they get thrown into the cannon fodder. So it's like, yeah, if you're an SDR, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in sales? Do you want to be in marketing? Do you want to be in customer service or revenue operations or whatnot? And yeah, so for sure.
Poor SDRs. I mean, they're on the front lines charging the line and taking the bayonets. And yeah, they're usually entry level, trying to get their feet wet, smile and dial. So I don't think they would have any problem knowing that they were going to be able to do something a little bit more exciting where they didn't get cussed at and told no, more times than yes. It's a tough role for sure.
Oh yeah. They'll be the first ones to thank you. And SDRs are reaching out to me just being like, oh dude, totally. Like they're very happy about it. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm knocking SDRs for sake of knocking them. It's just, no, I'm trying to say that that's a bad role that they shouldn't be doing and that they can have, a lot more fulfillment, a lot more, productivity, be happier in a proper role. And that companies shouldn't be forcing them into that. It's a waste of their talents and of their productivity. So the final step in the experiment and in the process of gradually moving away from bad marketing towards good marketing, from bad sales. I mean, we've kind of been mostly talking about marketing. given the audience that you guys have, I've kind of left sales. Like sales has some other problems, but we'll leave that aside for another day. But yeah, step number 4 is to gradually reduce prospecting activities. Gradually reduce prospecting activities. So do that by 25% increments. So reduce your telemarketing, reduce your emails, and reduce your LinkedIn messages by 25%. Again, quarterly for the SDRs, repurpose the SDRs to productive marketing tasks. They'll be thrilled. Again, the duration, a couple of sales cycles, and you're tracking the metrics, revenue, quality, pipeline efficiency, and then, further qualitative data, how do the SDRs like good marketing, proper marketing, whatnot. And and so if it's successful, again, incremental, do another 25% and then another 25%. And then basically you have sunsetted prospecting at SDRs. Hopefully you have helped the SDRs transition to more productive and fulfilling careers in other departments and whatnot. And you've repurposed talent and then are holding marketing accountable to real goals, real KPIs, revenue, quality, pipeline efficiency. And that creates marketing and sales alignment. Everyone's a winner. Marketing's a winner. Sales wins. The company wins, the growth is better. The buyer wins. So it's a win for everybody. And so, yeah, that's kind of the nutshell of what it is for marketing. And I think that for the marketers that do this, they will be part of the small minority now, I think, of modern good marketers that are kind of seeing where things are going. I think there's still a lot of marketers that are lagging behind and doing the old outdated playbook of SDRs, of trade shows, of display ads, of gated content, all this stuff that doesn't work and is really inefficient and ineffective, and they could fall by the wayside. And so don't wait until the analyst firms like Gartner give you permission to do good modern marketing. Get ahead of the game, and that could really launch your career. That can be more promotions, more money, get a seat at the table, because this is a real business case. This is not optimizing a hidden landing page and A/B testing. This is fundamentally changing your marketing org to be efficient and effective.
So I feel like I'm a very logical person. To me, this makes sense because, again, back to that real life scenario, nobody wants to be annoyed. Nobody wants to feel like they're being sold to. We, as buyers of our own services, self-educate and get annoyed when someone calls me before I'm ready to buy. So I guess why is this so hard for executive teams who are non-marketers to understand?
Yeah. So basically for CEOs or technical founders or for venture capital firms, these people aren't marketers. They typically are financiers, or they're financiers, or they're technical founders who are software engineers. And then they hire marketers to come and tell them what to do and how to market their product. Now, they don't understand what good or proper marketing looks like. And when the first thing that pops into their head, if they're like to market someone, it's like, well, I know I can email them, I can call them. I don't know, it's just the most simple thing that kind of pops into their head of how marketing used to be done 20, 30 years ago. So you need to educate them. You need to show them what good marketing looks like. And just be like, hey, look, the metrics that actually matter, do you want junk quality? Do you want junk MQLs and contact information and to annoy buyers? And do you want to waste all this time and money? Or do you actually want revenue and quality pipeline and efficiency and sales cycles? And so if you can speak that language, because that is CEO, PE language, VC language, they do not care about junk leads. So you need to basically say, I'm going to get accountable at marketing to the stuff that actually matters and moves the needle, and look at cost per acquisition payback, all that type of stuff, and show that to you and earn your trust to say that I'm going to do proper good marketing. Here's the stuff that we're going to do that works better and whatnot. And then have the freedom to do that. Now, there is some irrationality where a founder might know that, and a VC firm might know that, but they're going to say, hey, still annoy your buyers, like pressure them into speaking to sales before they're ready, which is so counterproductive. I think that smart CEOs and smart VC firms need to really avoid that, because you're not doing anyone any favors when you do that. And so, they might just there's this mentality where it's oh, we just need to strong arm people into speaking to sales to hit our crazy aggressive growth targets. And so It could also be there's a little bit of fault on the VC firms and the CEO firms who set unrealistic, overly aggressive growth goals and then pressure their people in counterproductive ways. And so showing them a better way, educating them that there's a better way is super, super important, because again, this is not their domain. This is like, imagine if someone was coming to you as a marketer and saying, hey, we've got this new model for software engineering, or they're like, you'd be like, huh? Like, so it's just like, yeah, you just gotta kind of break it down simple for them and kind of put this business case together and they'll see the light. But yeah, run this experiment. This is going to unlock that freedom.
Yeah. And you mentioned that a lot of this is based on the way marketing and sales have been done for the last 20 to 30 years. And I would say almost the last 60. I think this whole mindset of spray and pray comes from the mass marketing, television, radio audience. Throw it out there, appeal to everyone. Something's going to stick. Oh, by the way, we don't have the insight and the way to create very customized content. So salespeople start smiling and dialing and go through the phone book and get in front of as many people as possible. I think the internet has, the current environment gives us so many opportunities to fine tune and really target and be specific about who we're for and what we're for, and to delineate who we're not for and not attract those people. But yet I feel like this mentality that still exists is still stuck in 1950 television, mass media, marketing, and sales.
That's right. I mean, it's so outdated. Like, you need to educate your CEOs about how buyer preferences have changed, the internet, and like how marketing can make people aware and interested and stuff like that. But just make sure you stress the point that, like, just because someone has heard of you and just because someone has downloaded a piece of content does not mean they want to buy, and that you should not pressure and annoy them, because a lot of what you're seeing now is like buyers will consume some of your content, some of the marketing stuff, events, whatever, and then they'll sick the SDRs on them and annoy them with telemarketing email spam, because they're trying to, annoy and pester these buyers into speaking with sales. And so that is just so silly and counterproductive. And so, yeah, you just have to do things like the things we talked about in proper marketing, which also, I mean, there's various different influences that can cause a CEO and a board to lean or to kind of get suckered into doing some prospecting, which is like, it's very easily measurable. Like, you make the calls, it's like 100 calls, you're going to get like 1% conversion rate, blah, blah, blah. And it's very clearly in the CRM, but it's like, how do you kind of see all these different things that you're doing in proper marketing, which is very clear when you say the proper attribution or the proper metrics for marketing is revenue, quality, pipeline, and efficiency. You look at that bottom funnel metrics. You're also looking at the number of demo requests. You're looking at website traffic. You're looking at the consumption of your content and likes and comments and video, like all that type of stuff that's more up funnel, whatever. You're looking at the qualitative stuff, the word of mouth that you see on social media and people like singing your praise and all that type of things. You're asking buyers when they come to your website, how do they hear about you? You're having sales ask that as well and confirming. And then, boom, then you kind of know like what your marketing is doing and how people are hearing about you, which is what you really care about. So you just kind of have to show people like that's how marketing is done nowadays. Like, that's what marketing is. It's not what it used to be, where you just kind of go out there and hunt with your phone and, telemarket people and, show up at the door and door knock.
Exactly. A great conversation. Could probably talk for another hour. Other things we could kind of pivot into, and there's pivot again. But yeah, great conversation. I think this is really kind of the future of sales and marketing and that alignment.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for having me. Maybe we'll do a part 2 where we'll talk about more of the sales stuff, which is sales assembly line, commission, and quota, which does indirectly harm marketing and harms founders, harms companies a lot. Really, really, really harms sales. But that's a whole nother story in itself. But yeah, the first domino to fall in the predictive revenue model is marketing, given marketing's position nowadays. And so hopefully we'll see the revolution happen before our eyes, that, it's already happening. People are kind of breaking free, and hopefully we can help accelerate that. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot.